Yeah. Yeah. So more communism.
Oh, yes.
I had an interesting experience this week with supplemental material.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually liked these two chapters.
Yeah, they were good. They were, it was a little bit frustrating because I just felt like it could have been a lot clearer, but I'm sure that's partly translation.
I made kind of a breakdown of what I think he means by most of the stuff.
But he was very indirect, because he was defining the three different types of socialism and stuff like that.
Right.
Which I guess maybe we should define socialism and communism at the outset, which I know are sort of... Yeah. Everybody does. When I was just looking online, everybody does obviously have slightly different opinions about what it is, and then of course Marx presents. So Marx presents three different types in the Communist Manifesto, which is what
Engels.
We're reading.
We keep doing the classic thing.
Yeah, it's true. Marx and Engels.
I tried looking up how much of it was written. I couldn't really find how it was distributed.
Well, and
we keep saying Marx. I think it'd be hilarious if basically Engels wrote the whole thing and Marx is like, nice.
Well, and it's also interesting because I'm assuming this was the acknowledgments for the Communist Manifesto, but at the end there's an acknowledgement section and it's written in first person, which is kind of interesting. Also, it says thank you to Emma Rothschild.
Nice.
There's a little,
yeah.
QAnon.
Yeah. Let's keep going down that road.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't have acknowledgments. Mine has, actually kind of interesting, it has prefaces to the different translated editions. So it has like a preface to the 1982 Russian edition and the 1983 German, 1883 German edition. Preface to the English edition, preface to the Polish edition.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's why part of me wonders if this is the acknowledgments for the Communist Manifesto or if it's the acknowledgments for my edition. You know what I mean? Because I have this edition. It's funny, the edition that I have, the Communist Manifesto is only like the last 50 pages, and it's, almost 400 pages.
That's funny.
It's just all of these notes in the beginning.
Wait, what is this edition you have? What is this book?
I think it's the Penguin Classics. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, at some point, I'd like to read some of this other stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here.
Well, because it's interesting, because our translations are the same.
Yeah.
I think. But I have the Signet Classics edition.
Yeah, I mean, this has, like, the reception of the manifesto, the specter of communism, the communist... it has all these... Oh, Engels' contribution. Oh, yeah, so maybe we should read that.
Nice, yeah.
Marx's contribution, and then it has a thing on the young Hegelians. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
But it's not clear to me, because I do know that Engels released editions later.
Uh-huh.
So maybe it's that. I should know more about this before we talked about this. I just bought it and just read the Communist Manifesto part. I was like, Communist Manifesto and Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
So, getting into it, I feel like just starting by talking about these different sort of political groupings. Or no, you said you wanted to talk about what socialism versus communism was. So what do you see the distinction as being?
You're just putting the ball in my court.
Well, I can do it if you want. I have an answer.
Fine.
But.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I will just say, obviously, I'm not an expert in this, but from my understanding, communism is focusing on abolition of classes, abolition of private property, and consolidation of the means of production into the hands of the proletariat.
Right. That sounds right.
And then socialism is more, I mean, it's kind of more amorphous in that it's about evening the distribution of wealth across the spectrum of society. And then that gets interpreted in many different ways. But I think fundamentally that's kind of what it's about. But it's not, that's not necessarily with the abolition of property and stuff like that.
Right. No. I think property is really a major hinge, because when I think about capitalism versus socialism versus communism, I think about sort of three different paradigms of where property ownership lands.
Right.
Because to me, capitalism is essentially private ownership of property. Socialism is state ownership of property, like centralized ownership of property that's distributed and organized through the state. And then communism is the dissolution of property itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was also going to add, maybe there's also a revolutionary component, or certainly the communist interpretation of Marx.
Mm-hmm.
There's also seems to be a revolutionary component that's intrinsic, because that's one of his critiques of past communist and socialists, that, you know, a lot of them wanted to try to bring these things about without abolishing the current social order. And he's like, no, we got to abolish it.
Right. Yeah. So the chapters that we went through today go through the different kind of political or, you know, class / socio-political positionings of different types of socialists and communists that Marx lays out. And he separates them into broad categories: reactionaries, conservatives, and utopian socialists. Right.
And then before that, though, he talks about French socialism and German socialism sort of more broadly.
Doesn't he start with reactionary? My chapter starts with reactionary.
Oh, maybe he does. We're talking about
the
chapter
French
3.
and German was a subset of reactionary, I believe.
Oh, it was? Okay, sorry. Thank you. Then let me shut up. You take the wheel.
Okay.
I apologize.
What I tried to do when I was reading this is I tried to put the terms into modern. I tried to translate them into modern terms to sort of get a better understanding, and they don't work exactly. But the biggest ones that I feel like I've been wrestling with this last week is bourgeois versus proletariat, and what would we call them today? And I think bourgeois is broadly middle class, right?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that too, and I think maybe upper.
Well, but then the petty bourgeois, I
class.
think, exist in that exist in that lower middle class, because to me that is what we call blue collar now.
The petty bourgeois?
Yeah.
I don't know, because they were saying they were like the burgesses, and they were like, I feel like they were like the foremen. They were like the managers of the feudal states.
But he was also talking about how things like shoemakers and watchmakers, people who made things, and people who owned small businesses would count as petty bourgeois also. And when he was when he was talking about the German versus the French distinction and the German, quote, true socialism, he was discussing how they were appealing to this class of people, the petty bourgeois, ultimately sort of treating them as this sort of low end of the cultural spectrum.
Yeah.
So maybe it's maybe it's not exact. It's not factory workers, but it's small business owners and contractors, things like that.
Yeah, I guess I would say you could include them, but he specifically used the term burgesses and stuff like that. And
so, what does burgesses mean?
It's historically in like Britain and stuff, it's a member of parliament. Yeah, official of a municipality or a representative in the House of Commons.
Sure. So according to Wikipedia, Marx's conception of petty bourgeois is a social class comprised of semi-autonomous peasants and small-scale merchants.
Okay.
So I feel like I would be in that.
Yeah,
class.
you would be. Okay, so it's like the independent. I guess probably.
And that's why the petty bourgeois can go up and down between proletariat and bourgeois. because he said that in last week's reading. He was saying that the petty bourgeois exist in this weird space where they're constantly shifting between bourgeois and proletariat.
Right. Well, that I would, this is where I start to get a little bit fickle, because it's like he's also saying that there's constant fluctuation within all the classes, not just the petty bourgeois. So the way I'm picturing it, and probably you're picturing it generally, is that you've got the proletariat on one axis, the bourgeois on another axis, and then the petty bourgeois is in between. Is that how you think about it?
No.
No.
I'm interested in what that means. What I'm thinking is like a pyramid scheme. And then the bourgeois encompasses the whole middle with subsections, and the petty bourgeois is like lower middle class. Bourgeois is the whole thing, the whole middle section, and then there's like oligarchy on top, and then at the bottom is proletariat.
Well, so I guess I'm conceptualizing it like this because it's my understanding of what he's saying is that everything's consolidating into either bourgeois or proletariat, with the feudal aristocracy included. Now, it wasn't completely that way at this point, but it was going that way. So maybe part of the reason why this is kind of difficult for us to say who are the petty bourgeois now is because maybe we've progressed so much.
But I think they are there. So to me, my understanding is the distinction is the proletariat relies solely on their labor force to get them to support themselves. Mm-hmm. So like a migrant roofer is like 100% proletariat. But
yes.
A contractor who owns a roofing company, who does roofing, but also organizes teams and buys materials and stuff like that, is petty bourgeois, because some of his labor is capitalistic, or some of his earnings are capitalistic earnings, and some of his earnings come directly from his labor.
Yeah.
And so that's also where I count as petty bourgeois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ultimately I do agree. You are a petty bourgeois. How about that? Okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So back to Marx's category. So he has the reactionary socialists, which reactionary is an interesting term because he pits it against conservative. So I guess that today we'd call that like progressive, maybe, or something like that. I'm not sure. But he starts with feudal socialists,
right?
Which took me a long time to wrap my mind around. I read this passage like 3 times, and I listened to a Marxist YouTube video on what feudal socialists were, and I finally think I got the hang of it.
Okay. Do you want to explain it?
So, feudal socialists are modern oligarchs, essentially. Mm-hmm. So, the classic example of feudal socialists would be like do-gooder venture capitalist type guys.
Right.
Like, very wealthy Silicon Valley businessmen who make gobs of money and then spend all of their time talking about environmental issues and things like that. This Marxist video I watched was talking about the climate change movement as coming from the feudal socialist class.
Right. They're the progressives of the 1910s and
because
20s and 30s,
they do this particular thing where they talk all the time about helping the working classes, which they don't say today, but helping poor people, and they, in the climate change example, the devastation that's going to happen to all the poor people living in New Orleans and Africa with droughts and all this stuff, while at the same time pushing for social changes that make those exact people completely incapable of changing their situation, completely incapable of laboring or being productive. So the climate change example, what they would do is they would push for laws that would make it so any working class oil worker could no longer work, and any working class person who can't afford an electric car can no longer own a car and get to work, and just continue to do things that will cut those people off at the knees at every step, while talking about how those very things they're doing are meant to help them.
Yes, and as a sort of callback to our past episode when we were reading the Machiavellians, and it was talking about Pareto's class 1 and class 2 residues. Mm-hmm. It's that same, it's those people, right, in like the 1930s and 20s, the progressives.
Yes.
And in some ways they're the foxes, because they're saying, as they called it, sort of gross humanitarianism. They're saying all these things, but then you look at what the actions are. You look at how Haiti is now. Mm-hmm. You look at all the, the aid that was given, and
right. But exactly, the progressive thing I think is important because they're reactionary, and that's one of the keys. Is what they're doing is they're trying to enact major changes. And this is in contrast to what he talks about with the conservative socialists later.
Right.
Who think that the way that they have it is the best way.
Right.
And they're anti-revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the feudal socialists. And then he goes on to talk about the petty bourgeois, which we kind of already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you have other ideas on that?
No, I mean, ultimately I agree. I think they're like independent people. I still was also getting the feel that they were sort of like the supervisor class also of the proletariat,
Sure.
But maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, I think that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they're low-level managers, small business owners, things like that.
Right. Yeah. And and I guess, let me see if I had any interesting notes on this. Oh, I guess maybe that the liberal movement, he was saying, was the... wait. Oh, no, this was the Prussian bourgeoisie, sorry. Not the petty. We'll get to that.
Nice.
He had an interesting phrase where he was saying the Prussian bourgeoisie's fight against the feudal aristocracy and absolute monarchy is what the liberal movement was.
Yes.
In Germany.
Yeah, I remember that. That is interesting.
But no, okay, we can move on.
Actually, going back to the feudal socialists for a minute, they at the end, he has a little point about Christianity, and I didn't fully wrap my head around that. I don't know if you had a thought on that, but let's see.
The Christian socialism is but the holy water with which priest consecrates the heart burnings of the aristocrat.
Right.
That's not clear as day to you?
Okay, so nothing is easier than to give Christian asceticism a socialist tinge.
Yeah.
Why is that easy? Has not Christianity declaimed...
Love thy neighbor, all that kind of stuff, I guess, probably.
Right. Christianity declaimed against private property, against marriage, and against the state. Has Christianity declaimed against marriage? I'm not aware of that. I mean, I don't know what Christians were saying in the early 1800s. I've never looked into that at all. But, because the next sentence, has it not preached in the place of these charity and poverty, celibacy, and mortification of the flesh, monastic life, and mother church? I think it has preached those things, but not for everybody. I don't remember a time that Christianity has ever preached against marriage, but I don't know. It's a small point. It doesn't matter that much. It was just a...
Yeah, I don't know.
And then I also don't quite see if this still fits today. Is this tie between Christianity and the feudal socialists still in play?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because especially just that Christian socialism is but the holy water with which the priest consecrates the heart burnings of the aristocrat. So obviously, they're saying that it is to the benefit of the aristocrat.
Right.
Which I think is kind of true, because I think maybe what he's getting at here, if you look at historically, the way that you would become aristocratic, like the only real social mechanism for going up in the social class was the clergy. And that's also kind of how in the Middle Ages and Renaissance period and into the classical, how you would identify the smart people. Because it would be, if you could read, then you could become a priest, and then, then you'd go to university and stuff like that. So I wonder if it's just also getting at that fact, is that the priests are kind of part of the aristocracy, maybe?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's all my thoughts are on that. Nice. One thing about the petty bourgeois I think is important just to highlight, that the aim of the petty bourgeois socialism is to restore old means of production, restore the old means of production. So, which is why I was also they were also like the guild owners. I think they were like guild people, some guilders, maybe guild members. Right. Because obviously you also had some guild members that became manufacturers, but the guilds were largely against the industrial class because the industrial class was replacing the guilds.
Right. Yeah, doesn't he say the communists are the guilds later, maybe?
Well, the petty bourgeois, he says, its last words for the petty bourgeois socialism are corporate guilds for manufacture, patriarchal relations, and agriculture. So that's restoring, the old ways.
Right. And this is another question I had. What are the old means of production and exchange? If we're thinking 1848, what are the old means of production?
I think he just explained it. So corporate guilds were like, manufacturing was controlled by guilds, and so learning crafts was tightly controlled by guilds.
So like it is now?
Maybe if you call the modern, physician association a guild. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just physicians. It's like...
it's just an example.
Right, but, I mean, isn't everything kind of controlled by, accrediting organizations and things like that?
Yeah, but I think the idea is that there was a new power center that was cropping up in the industrial class that was replacing the old guilds.
I guess I just don't know the history enough. It's not how I think about, the 16 and 1700s.
What?
Being... everything is controlled by the American Dental Association and the APA, all these things. It's not how I imagine it.
Well, I think the one big difference is that things are much more dynamic now than they were. I mean, that's one thing that we've certainly learned from our readings, is that things there were much older vanguards that were in place for much longer periods back in the day. So guilds were sort of one example of that, where because the crafts that they were practicing were much more ancient, but then the industrial manufacturing centers cropped up and replaced the need for skilled labor, basically, or that specific type of skilled labor, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still a little lost. I guess maybe I need to read more. About the history.
Why are you lost? I mean,
I'm not seeing what it means. What was lost and how? Not specifically, like an example.
Well, one thing is that the people that were in power were losing power. I mean, that's one thing. So it's specific to the people of the time. But if for many generations you were a cobbler and your father was a cobbler and your father was a cobbler, and you were the head of the guild in North whatever Scotland.
It was the Cobblers Guild. So
the Cobblers Guild.
In 1680, if you made shoes
and
you weren't a member of the guild, they'd just come and murder you or something.
Well, potentially, but I'm not even trying to get to that, because also we're talking 1780, and then all of a sudden in 1780 somebody comes up with a machine to manufacture shoes more efficiently, and they just start outproducing the guilds. So that's the point, is that old power structure that was in place for generations was being supplanted at this time, and all the social capital that went with that.
Right.
Which is why they were harboring for the old ways. They probably wanted all these upstarts out of there.
Right,
Because, it's just I would say the same thing happening now with the internet. It's like there was, 15 years ago, all the new CEOs were in their 20s and 30s because they understood this new thing that was changing everything better than the older people, and it was creating and still is creating all of this kind of weird social upheaval.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably similar. So, of course, the vanguards of the time are going to be harboring back for an old way of doing things.
What do you mean, vanguards? That's a word I always forget what it means.
It's just like somebody in power that controls sort of that, whatever it is that they're representing.
Right.
So, licensing boards are vanguards.
Are those the guild? I mean, because
yes,
I don't know,
the guilds are
like
vanguards.
Everything is controlled by that today.
No, the vanguards are guilds. Yes, because you would need membership to get like legitimacy to do your craft.
Right. Yeah.
Or the guilds are vanguards, is what I meant to say.
Right. So it's all guild-based systems.
Well, I mean, there were other things too, but the guilds were a big part. And they got pushed out by the industrial class.
Right, because the industrial class did it cheaper and faster.
Yeah.
And maybe better.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. And then the
nice.
true
now
German
true socialism.
So yeah, no, I was right though. Yeah. Oh wait, no, I was wrong. You were still right. Nothing. We're still under.
What were,
nothing.
What were you wrong? I don't remember you being wrong about anything.
I'm wrong about everything.
What are you talking about?
Let's move on. I'm going to cut this out.
Why?
Because
wait,
I don't
what
know.
were you right or wrong about? I don't even know that was
stupid.
Something was on the table for being right or wrong.
The reactionary socialism. I got myself confused again. I keep getting confused.
I don't think that's your fault. I think so. A big criticism I have of these sections is that there's so much bleed between these categories.
Yes.
That they don't. I mean, I kind of get what he's saying, but that doesn't seem like really like laid out categories.
Yeah. As with most social sciences stuff, I mean, it's all dependent on definitions,
right?
Which can border into each other. So I keep forgetting. So all of these, I guess it's important to reiterate, at least for me, these are all subsets of reactionary socialism.
Right. It's pretty weird to have a reactionary group that wants to go back to old ways,
right.
But sure.
And I'm assuming he's calling it reactionary socialism because it was reacting to the new bourgeois class.
Right. I guess reactionary is, reacting to something, right?
Something, yeah. Something.
To something. All right, so the German true socialist, he really doesn't have very nice things to say about the Germans.
No. He's like Nietzsche.
Right. Yeah, he seems to think that they're stupid.
Yep. Poor Germans.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because so what are my notes on this? True socialism under Germany aligned itself with the working lower middle class and appealed to, and then was what I was calling a blue collar worker or something like that. That's my note on it. And then some of the highlighted sections I have here are in Germany, the petty bourgeois class, a relic of the 16th century, and since then cropping up again under the various forms, is the real social basis of the existing state of things. To preserve this class is to preserve the existing state of things in Germany. The industrial and political supremacy of the bourgeoisie threatens it with certain destruction. On the one hand, from the concentration of capital, on the other hand, from the rise of a revolutionary proletariat. And on its part, German socialism recognized more and more its own calling as the bombastic representative of the bourgeoisie, or the petty bourgeois Philistine.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was blue collar, because it's talking specifically about aligning itself with the petty bourgeois Philistine.
Yeah, and it proclaimed the German nation to be the model nation and the German petty Philistine to be the typical man.
Right, the average guy just drinks Bud Light.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's great. And it's extolling this thing. It's extolling this guy. It's the same thing that's happening now with all those YouTube videos of a guy with a beard out in the woods singing a song.
It's going to be you soon, Antushka.
Yeah, exactly.
I am a man. Oh. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, though, because yet again, this is a reactionary movement, and he's talking about it's trying to preserve things.
Yeah, but that's why I was saying I think this is all reactionary to the bourgeois class. It's all a fight. And, then he also... actually, I guess in this case, like I said, the fight of the German and especially of the Prussian bourgeoisie against feudal aristocracy and absolute monarchy, in other words, the liberal movement, became more earnest. So the German socialism, which took its schoolboy task so seriously and solemnly and extolled its poor stock in trade in such mountebank fashion, meanwhile gradually lost its pedantic innocence.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's why I feel like what's happening is in his mind is that the petty bourgeoisie is creating this true socialism again for the benefit of the bourgeoisie.
I mean, what I'm getting is he's saying like these German socialists are so stupid that they are looking at the wrong class. They're so upset with the aristocracy and trying to fight them so hard that they're defending the wrong groups of people.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of summarizing it.
All right, now we get a new section, non-reactionary. So the reactionary had the subset, just to sum it up, we had the feudal socialists, the petty bourgeois socialists. They're all socialists. And the true German socialists, and true is in quotes. He's being sort of bitchy. All right, now we got a big section, conservative or bourgeois socialism.
Mm-hmm.
And this is rampant today. This is where, this is professors, doctors, scientists, social workers,
musicians that play guitar in Austin.
Nope, they're petty. No, musicians who play guitar in Austin are definitely petty bourgeois.
No, I know, I'm just joking.
Because they're
coming
workers.
at me.
And then other musicians are like proletariat artists or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so the conservative or bourgeois socialism, I have a bunch of stuff highlighted. I thought it was a good section. I have almost the whole section highlighted, which is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
What?
No, this is good. I like to see you fired up.
Yeah, so here's a quote, a section that I thought was an interesting point. The socialistic bourgeois wants all the advantages of modern social conditions without the struggles and dangers necessarily resulting therefrom. Yes. They desire the existing state of society minus its revolutionary and disintegrating elements. They wish for a bourgeoisie without a proletariat. And this is where I see this everywhere with especially educated people, sort of middle to high middle income people who look down on people with a more revolutionary spirit and say rioting isn't the way to do things. There are ways of doing things. There's channels. What they want people to do is exist within the channels of the system as they are, and they think that is the best way of doing things. Probably because that's the way they like to do things. It's
I was going to say, wouldn't you think that way too if you were benefiting from a system and living well under it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know if I would think that way, but I understand why somebody would. Yeah, so continuing on, in requiring the proletariat to carry out such a system, this bourgeoisie system without a proletariat, non-revolutionary system, And in requiring the proletariat to carry out such a system, and thereby to march straightway into the social New Jerusalem, it but requires in reality that the proletariat should remain within the bounds of existing society, but should cast away all its hateful ideas concerning the bourgeoisie. A second and more practical but less systematic form of this socialism sought to depreciate every revolutionary movement in the eyes of the working class by showing that no mere political reform, but only a change in the material conditions of existence in economic relations could be of advantage to them. By changes in the material conditions of existence, this form of socialism, however, by no means understands abolition of the bourgeois relations of production, an abolition that can be effected only by a revolution, but administrative forms based on the continued existence of these relations. Reforms, therefore, that in no respect affect the relations between capital and labor, but at the best lessen the cost and simplify the administrative work of bourgeois government. So this is like the buying off. So to me, I think the first thing I think is welfare. Systems that increase the material existence and conditions. They make life a little bit easier for the poorest people, and in exchange for that, those people, should be mollified and be convinced to work within the system, and actually, in many ways, with the welfare state, forced to work within the system.
Yeah, I think you identified the analogy to today very well.
I mean, maybe he's writing this about 2024.
He's Milton Friedman.
He's Milton Friedman. Yeah.
Or Milton Friedman's him. How would Milton Friedman feel about being compared to Marx?
I don't know. That'd be funny. Yeah, I don't know. So, what do you think of these conservative?
I think you're right.
Socialists?
I think that it's interesting because I also am. We've talked about this a lot before, but I always think it's important to remember how much better life is now, and I think that is what you're saying. The incremental increase in the betterment of the proletariat, but I would say when you look at the increase in standard of living now compared to when Marx was living, I mean, it's just there's no comparison.
I mean, here we go. Here he addresses this exact point. The bourgeoisie naturally conceives of the world in which it is supreme and best.
No. Yes. Well, but that's the question, is maybe it is. Because but now we're 150 years later, people have been trying Marx's experiment over and over again.
Well, maybe they just didn't wait long enough. Maybe the proletariat wasn't ready. Come on.
But here's where
he said that this is going to happen. He also said there's going to be revolutions before they're ready, and they're going to fail.
Yes. But he also said Germany at the end was ripe for it.
Right.
He didn't say anything about Russia, though.
He's a little off, but...
Yeah, he said there was going to be a bourgeois revolution followed by a proletariat revolution.
It kind of reminds me of talking to, Christian apocalyptic people when they're like, the end is coming right away. And it's like, well, it says in the Bible that it was going to come before any of the people listening to Jesus died. He said, truly, I tell you, in your lifetime. And they're like, well, he didn't mean that literally. He just means sort of in the lifetime of the church.
Sure.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. People hear what they want to hear and disregard the rest.
No. Nice.
Thank you. That's White Stripes' Icky Thump, right? I think.
Is
Something
it?
like that. Yeah, I think it's a White Stripes. It might not be Icky Thump.
That doesn't sound... I don't remember that from Icky Thump.
Want to hear disregard.
You're going to look it up?
No, what the hell? I'm an idiot. Simon and Garfunkel. It's Simon and Garfunkel.
Right.
The boxer.
Ooh la 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 la. La 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 la.
Yeah. I'm just messed. My head's messed up today. What the hell's
It's really
going on?
weird to think that's Icky Thump.
I know.
That's a really different song.
Icky Thump it. Man, here's what he wants to hear. Icky Thump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. And so,
yeah.
what?
No.
On to the third major category. The critical utopian socialism and communism.
Mm-hmm.
So this, to me, was in a way the least defined. I had less of I had a harder time summing up in nice modern words everything in this. I yet again have like 3 paragraphs highlighted though. Why did I do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where, again, he departs from, because he's, I think, here trying to hearken back to the older socialists and communists.
Right.
And like, what is it? Owen and Fourier.
Right.
In France. And I think his basic idea, I think it's kind of similar to the previous one, honestly, where it's like they want a evening of the classes, but kind of within, but not with a revolution. Because that seems like at the end.
No, with a revolution, right?
No, but he says, therefore, although the originators of these systems were in many respects revolutionary, their disciplines have, in every case, formed mere reactionary sects. So,
that's what's come out of it. But the utopian idea can only be revolutionary, right? Because the utopian ideal can only be achieved through revolution. And that's where he talks about the destruction of all social forms.
Yes. No, you're right. Yeah, they attack every principle of existing society.
Right. And then he's got that interesting thing where he says the significance of critical utopian socialism and communism bears an inverse relationship to historical development.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, I just think on that sentence a little
I
bit.
know.
It's hard to imagine quite what that means.
I know. What a roundabout way of saying that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think he defines it better as he goes on. In proportion as the modern class struggle develops and takes definite shape, this fantastic standing apart from the contest, these fantastic attacks on it lose all practical value. So he's just saying that as time goes on, it becomes all of what these older forms of socialism and communism were saying become less practical because they're utopian.
Right. But I think that's where, like, downstream from this is the theory of perpetual revolution. He doesn't talk about it in this particular manifesto, but it's the idea that as power structures take form, there has to be constant revolution against them. So the fully communistic state is a state of perpetual revolution.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see why I've got the impression they were saying that it wasn't calling for revolution. They still dream of experimental realization of their social utopias, of founding isolated phalansteres.
I think he's talking about people who start communes, like hippies.
Yeah, I know. He is. He's talking about the Owens and the Fouriers. Duodecimo editions of the New Jerusalem, and to realize all these castles in the air, they are compelled to appeal to the feelings and purses of the bourgeoisie. So that's why I felt like they were not revolutionary, because they were appealing to them. By degrees, they sink into the category of reactionary conservative socialists. See?
I think that they start off as revolutionaries and they find themselves in this situation.
Right. Which,
yes.
But as we've already said, the reactionary conservative socialists are non-revolutionary. And he's saying they sink into that. So that's why I'm just trying to defend why I felt like I was saying such a crazy thing. Differing from these only by more systematic pedantry and by their fanatical and superstitious belief in the miraculous efforts of their social scientists. So they therefore violently oppose all political action on the part of the working class. Well, another reason I was thinking they were saying they're non-revolutionary.
But they're not opposing revolution. They're opposing political action.
Yeah, to me I see. Yeah, yes, that is different from revolution. Yeah, yeah. So the Owenites in England, the Fourierists in France, oppose the Chartists and Reformistes.
Right. Don't start a House of Commons. Don't vote. That's not what you want to do. Topple the system.
Right.
Or exit the system. Go start a commune.
Yeah. Go start a commune.
Right.
Yeah. Go start a commune.
All right.
Man.
So what about the last chapter?
Yeah. The workers of the world unite.
Oh, yeah. Working men of all countries unite. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did I think about it? Well, yeah, I mean, I think that he certainly laid it all out on the line, especially at the end. The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Mm-hmm. Let the ruling classes tremble at the communistic revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. So I could see why he got kicked out of Germany.
Yeah.
And why it's been such a potent piece of writing ever since, you know?
Right. I guess. Yeah. It's kind of
You don't think it's potent?
I think that third chapter was cool.
Well, I'm just saying it's obviously potent from the fact that it's been so influential.
I guess, but nobody cites it. Like, I'm not hearing the Palestinian protesters, like, quoting Marx.
I feel like, again, you see this worldview in how all of them are operating, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I think to a degree, sure.
Yeah, because, I mean, anyway, yeah. I don't even know if I want to get too into that.
That's fine. I mean, we can talk about something else. I don't find it highly potent. Yeah.
Again, I'm... how come? How about that? Let's start there.
I think that its premise is boring. That the history of the world is the history of class struggle. And I think that maybe, I mean, I'm just talking about for me. I think you're right. I think some people find it potent.
I think a lot of people. Again, it's just like, look at what it has spawned. People have busts of Marx.
Who? Who has busts of Marx?
Lenin, I think, had one.
Well, fine. Okay, yeah, the communists like it.
Fine.
Some communists like it, but some communists don't like it. There's this whole like anti-Marx.
Hang on. You just shrugged off Lenin as if Lenin wasn't a hugely influential person in history.
Lenin has been dead for a long time.
Yeah, but again, his ripples of what he did are still being felt today.
I bet more people in the U.S. have busts of Lenin than of Marx.
Yeah, I think you're right. Somebody has a bust of Lenin, too.
Well, there's a statue of Lenin up in, like, Seattle, I think.
But you see what I'm saying? When I'm talking about potency, and this is a pedantic point anyway, but I'm just trying to get you to admit that or see how the writing has been so influential. And I guess, in my opinion, it has been because it's very provocative. It not only sort of says things in a very definitive way, as we've already discussed in the last episode, that kind of gets you almost kind of angry at them.
Right.
It also lays out a formula and a story. It like weaves a bunch of things together, and then it ends with a message of like very just simply, like the last chapter is 2 pages. It's just like, hey guys, this is what we have to do. Let's go.
Right.
And then what do you see happen? You see in the next 20 years, more and more communist guilds are cropping up, and the movement's growing larger and larger.
Right.
Yeah, and then by the 1870s, it was just everybody was a Marxist. Not everybody, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I think of theories or writings that are potent, I don't know.
I'm just saying, look at the influence. That's how I think you determine the potency.
The influence.
Because what is potency? It's how are people responding? Are people reading it and doing something and remembering?
Right.
Like, is it making them act? And it's certainly making people act.
Right.
Now, I think a good question could be put forth that, that there was a groundswell of communist activity, as Marx himself documents, well before him. Like, Beauf, that French guy, I didn't know about him. He was a proto-communist in the French Revolution who died.
Right.
Beauf, I don't know how to pronounce it. But anyway, so I guess an argument could be made that if he and Engels hadn't written this, somebody else would have written something that people would have been galvanized around. But he did. It was them.
But that's my question. Is maybe I don't know the history of the dissemination of the Communist Manifesto. I don't know how galvanizing of a document it was, I guess. So maybe it was a lot more galvanizing than I'm thinking it was.
I think
to me it's a little bit like the
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell question of what's your starting point and why, and that's what you were speaking about right now. He talks about like OSHA and workplace safety laws, and OSHA likes to say that as soon as OSHA came in, things got safer. And he said, if you go back 30 years before OSHA, you see a line that things were steadily getting safer over and over time. And there isn't even a blip with OSHA.
Yeah. Yes, and again, 1848, of course, was a crazy year.
Right.
Also happened to be the year that this came out, but I don't know enough about the period to say that. I don't think it was because of that.
Right. But the fact that he's able to lay out these different kind of like socio-political groups means that they have some entrenchment in society already.
Right. No, they definitely do. Yeah. But yeah, no. I mean, it's kind of a silly point. But yeah, I just think, I guess I just find it kind of interesting that you don't think it's influential, or as influential as I think.
I think that like Lenin is way more influential than Marx. And I think that Mao was way more influential.
I think more people know who Marx is than Lenin is.
Maybe in the U.S. Probably not in Russia.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. I have obviously a USA-centric
And I bet
view.
everyone in China knows about Mao.
Yeah, because I was also just saying how, I mean, I didn't take any of these classes. I imagine you didn't, but I'm sure that the Communist Manifesto is taught in a lot of, just beginner college courses of maybe literature or social theory.
I mean, I don't even know if the Communist Manifesto is Marx's most cited piece of work. Because I know that in economics departments, they'll talk about Das Kapital and Die Staat and things like that. What?
So this is the History Channel.
Nice. Okay.
But I typed at Google, is Communist Manifesto Marx's most influential book? The political pamphlet, arguably the most influential in history, proclaimed that the history... I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, I think it's kind of interesting that you don't realize how influential it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hugely... like, people know what it's called without having read it. That kind of influence,
I just feel like maybe it's I'm underwhelmed by it, and I have a hard time imagining people being not underwhelmed by it.
Here's the legacy section of Wikipedia. A number of late 20th and 21st century writers have commented on the Communist Manifesto's continuing relevance. In a special issue of the Socialist Register commemorating the manifesto's 150th anniversary, blah, 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 Peter Osborne, I should give credit, argued that it was the single most influential text written in the 19th century.
But then this is where I may, okay. If that's true, that's true. And I just have no respect for any, then I'm just like, I lose respect for humanity.
Well,
this is not. Why would this be the basis for anything? It's a pamphlet. Like the most influential texts in economics are theoretical treatises. The most influential texts in music are theoretical treatises. Like this is some
know if
rag.
That's true.
Like it's so
what
annoying.
are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Like what are the most influential medical texts? Like something on WebMD? Come on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's because, again, it was so simple and straightforward, as with everything that is popular.
So I could just write, 20 pages of just statements that I don't back up with anything.
Yes.
And then it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Do it. I mean, look at what was Thomas Paine's, pamphlet.
Common sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that was very long either.
Right, but I also wouldn't call that one of the most influential texts in the 20th century.
It was pretty influential, though.
Sure.
And, it wasn't 20th century, too.
But, yeah. Neither was this. Neither text was from the 20th century.
No. I think just meant to say most influential, because that person was saying it was the most influential of the 19th century when it was published.
Oh, I thought he said 20th. Okay.
No. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know why we're arguing about this. Sorry.
I just don't. Okay, if it is, it is. I don't know.
Well, and you had asked what I think about it, and I was just also telling you why I think it is so influential.
I think it's fair.
It's I'm not saying you're wrong.
I'm just bummed
it's
that
fun.
It's so influential.
Well, I can agree with that. I'm bummed at, you always see that, though. The popular stuff often is the candy, It's the simple things.
This is Taylor Swift of the 1840s.
Basically is what I'm saying. Hey, how dare you come at Taylor, first off? What are you trying to say about Taylor Swift? No.
I could have said Kendrick Lamar. That would have made people mad.
Whoa, dude. You taking a side on that whole thing? Are you about to take sides? Yeah. But anyway, I don't know, man. I mean... I thought it was interesting, though. I'm glad that we read it because because I wanted to read it because it's so influential. I was like, this is just something I feel like. Another reason to read it is because, I guess it's just a simple way to get what Marx and Engels are pushing. So that's why I think it's so useful. Right. It's like, here's our position. Now you know where we are. You like that about people, right? When they say, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't that clear to me.
Well, the end, what I just read, that was pretty clear.
It was kind of clear, but it's still not it's not laying out the groundwork it's not like I read this and I now know how to start the great proletarian state.
Well, he did give those.
He talks about how it'll happen naturally. But.
Well, he says abolition of you're right. He doesn't say here's step 1, step 2. Although you also have to remember they were all part of communist groups. So I'm sure they were talking about that sort of thing. But you're right, yeah. Well, he does give I thought he did give some I mean, the biggest thing was that they all need to consolidate and come together.
Right.
Which is,
like that Beatles song. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the Beatles song. It's just a communist
it's true. It's also
propaganda.
a ripoff.
It's a ripoff?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't remember who, but there's another artist. It's a total ripoff.
Yeah. Nothing new under the sun.
Nope.
I mean, we all know Solomon wrote Come Together.
Solomon. Yeah. He had some pretty good bass licks.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
So what do you? I feel like I've been saying what I think about it. What are your takeaway thoughts from it? It's influential.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything out of it valuable?
Yes, I think it was a good way of understanding what a lot of people today want. Because again, I think there's a lot of people that want this, and yeah, I just can't keep from thinking that the subtext to all this is that he wants to be the one in power.
Right.
You know, and he wants that he or the group that he's representing at that point
take power. Yeah.
Yes, he wants to be at the center of this revolution.
Right.
He wants to probably be dictating the means of production once it gets consolidated under the proletariat.
Right.
And it's like, and even if you replace Marx with somebody else, it's like, I don't see how you can get out of the communist framework as it's been laid out here without going to like a one world government that's authoritative,
right?
Controlling everybody, which I don't want.
Yeah. Well, so, there's a debate between Jordan Peterson and Zizek.
Yeah,
and I'm just not saying his first name because I never can say his first name properly. Slavov, is that right?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
And it's capitalism v. socialism or communism or something like that. And so Jordan Peterson starts his bit with saying that he'd read the Communist Manifesto. And it was pretty interesting because he said he made a few statements that got a really weird reaction from part of the crowd who are clearly sort of in the communist thing. Because he said that he thinks he basically sums it up by the history of the world is class struggle, oppressor oppressed, and that this is a framework for those who would like to enact their tyrannical will over others to have like the moral freedom to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what I said.
You know, 10% of the audience just started laughing.
Right.
And then the other part of the audience like booed them. It was really weird. It was very strange. Well, and then Jordan Peterson had this retort where he was like, maybe those bunch who were laughing are those sorts who would like to enact their tyrannical will over others. And then he said something about how it calls for a violent, bloody revolution against the bourgeois. And then that same group of people just started like hooping and cheering. And
right.
It was very interesting.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of people in our society that want it to collapse, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just the question of who's going to, somebody's going to take power in that vacuum. Who is it going to be? Are they going to be better?
Right. Well, I mean, but these are the different ways of conceptualizing, though, because not everybody conceptualizes history and society as reducible to power struggles in all domains. Yeah. Because I think that the Rose Wilder Lane version, or even the Christian version, or the way that I see it, is I find even this statement about the proletariat have nothing to lose but their chains to be, I mean, I'm completely against it, because you're saying essentially they're slaves. They don't have agency. And this is the vibe I got the whole time.
Right.
The proletariat are acted upon until they have the numbers and the power given to them by the bourgeois to revolt. But they have no agency. And this is the whole thing about what the world I'm looking for is a world where we all have agency. We all have freedom. And we are called, and I see this is like actually being tied in a weird way to Christianity, that we have our God-given will and freedom. Everybody.
Right.
And and there are tyrants around the world trying to squash that, including Karl Marx. And there's different ways of squashing it. There's squashing it head on, saying, I'm king, you're not. And then there's these weird subversive ways of squashing it by creating an ideology where you squash yourself because you believe you are less than, and that the only thing you can do is revolt at some point. You have to be violent because you're being forced to be less than, whether you are or you aren't. And this is my problem with this and all critical theory and stuff like that, is that the idea of the narrative that I am an oppressed person is definitely a narrative that will breed violence.
Right.
But that also doesn't mean that there aren't people who are oppressed. There's this whole thing. It's like,
I was just about to
when
say,
I read I read the state of the world, I don't think he's wrong in all of his descriptions of things going on.
Right.
I think he's wrong in the idea that the proletariat or these people are by definition in chains, because I don't think that anybody is by definition in chains. I think that people are put in chains by other people, and history is not a war of concepts. It's actually a struggle between actual people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but that's for me. I take it to the personal rather than the
and also I think it goes to the fact that you've been taught that you have agency, and I think this goes to a point that if you teach a population that they don't have agency, then they won't have agency.
Right.
But if you teach a population they do, then they will. But you know, it's hard to take a population that's been told that they don't have control and get them to realize they have control.
That was the narrative of my whole childhood.
Right. Yeah.
Was that we don't have control.
Oh, interesting.
We're poor for this reason. We can't do this. Right. We can't do that. We have to rely on other people, blah, 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 blah.
Uh-huh.
And it just becomes abundantly clear to me that the choices you make will change the direction you go in.
Yeah. How do you think you came to that
to me, it's just obvious. Because, I don't know, like, I was really overweight when I was 16. And then I did a really weird thing. I, cut my calories down to, 1,000 a day. And I exercised for 3 hours a day. So I went kind of crazy, but it worked. It was I lost 40 pounds.
Yeah.
It was my action has, there's something that happens because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's a very good point, though. I think not everybody has such a lucid experience like that, though, I think is the problem, maybe. Or their just eyes aren't open to it, I suppose.
I think also people get emotionally upset at the idea that their choices do have ramifications. It's like my whole thing. Right. I think that many people wish to be slaves.
Well, or at least they don't want to think about everything. Like, they want some things taken care of.
Right. Well, I don't think about everything.
No, I know, but that's the thing is the independence in some cases.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It breeds, you have to, you have a lot more variables to account for.
That's what community is for.
No, I know, but even community, you're giving up freedoms. You are.
Sure. Taking on responsibility.
So, all I'm trying to say, though, is that is just that it can be looked at, I guess, as a diminishment of your ability to do things. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's quite a manifest.
Yeah. Yeah. So are we going to read the fascist manifesto next?
We can. I mean, it's too short. We could try and do a whole episode on it. It'd be more of a deep dive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm down. It'd be an easy week because it's 10 pages.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of liking these easier readings. Or shorter readings. I've been pretty busy, which is why I feel like I haven't been on top of this as I was on other stuff.
But I think we got over an hour out of this.
No, and I think you did a really good job. So I think if anything, it's been good to sort of let you run with it.
Let's just get back to Semmelweis. I saw Semmelweis was a hand washing guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a comment about him on Twitter today. It was pretty funny.
Who was talking about him? Or why, I suppose.
There's this undergrad meteorology major who's all trying to push against the climate change narrative, like really hard, and he gets a lot of pushback, like, how could you know this as just an undergrad, or like, you bet you're being paid by big oil, blah, blah,
Oh, he's
blah.
comparing himself to Semmelweis?
No, he didn't compare himself to Semmelweis. Somebody in the comments said that all of these comments are funny because there was somebody at one point who they thought was put in jail for telling doctors that they should wash their hands.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It's true. Good old Ignaz.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. That'll be good. And then we're going to read... What were we going to read after that? I think we had...
Oh, did we pick something?
I got to listen back like a few episodes ago. I feel like we were talking about...
We talked about Mises at one point.
Mm-hmm. And also Buchard?
Buchard. I don't remember that.
the Frankfurt School people.
Yeah. When I think of them, I think Marcuse and Adorno.
Yeah.
I don't know Buchard.
I probably just made something up.
That sounds pretty French.
Yeah. Oh, I took 5 years of French.
No.
I just have random French words. It's amazing how bad I am at French, though. I can't read it at all. It's pretty depressing. It just goes to show the public school of America, But here's me saying it's somebody else's fault, though. I wasn't paying attention too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So should we do that? The Doctrine of Fascism for next week?
That Doctrine of Fascism, yeah.
By Benito Mussolini.
Are we going to get in trouble for this?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much you agree with it, I guess.
He was a thug, right?
What?
A thug?
A thug?
Yeah.
That sounds racist.
Is it? Against Italians?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have derailed.
Yes, we have. All right. We did it. All right. Goodbye.
All right. See ya.